Welcome back, guys. It is time for another Tabs Top 10. Today we are doing top 10 best secret units in Totally Accurate Battle Simulator. Coming in at number 10, we have one of the first secret units added to the game. We're going to be taking a look at Vlad. Qualities that were considered when ordering our list here are things like how much damage they do in 1v1s, how effective they are in one versus a group, do they have AoE abilities, how much health do they have, what is their rate of fire, and how much do they cost. Vlad is a pretty well-rounded unit. He doesn't cost too many points, and he's pretty effective as his spear that he carries can hit units from far away, although he lacks health and dies very easily when up against ranged units. Coming in at number 9, we're taking a look at the Clam unit, one of the most unique and I think one of the coolest units in the game. The Clam unit can throw clams in swarms, and if you put 12 of them together, this is how many clams equate to one ice giant. This is 6,000 score worth of clam units, and they can just absolutely mob any attackers that they're facing. Despite having a really low health pool, a really high rate of fire, but really low damage, the Clam falls a little bit lower on our list, but they are super fun to watch and super fun to mess around with. But when it comes to 6,000 score, you're almost always better off just going with the big guns, heavy damage, high health, slow rate of fire like the Ice Giant. Here is 6,000 score worth of clams going up against 6,000 score worth of one Ice Giant, and the Ice Giant just wipes them all out with almost no problem at all. What do you guys think? Do you prefer 12 clam units equaling 6,000 score or one Ice Giant equaling 6,000 score? Even though the Ice Giant's better, I think I might like the clams a little bit more just because of how cool they look. Coming in at number 8, we have, again, another fairly new unit added to the game, the Bomb Cannon. Very similar to the Pirate Faction's normal cannon, this cannon fires bombs. Very, very effective when taking out groups of enemies. So if you have a shield wall or clusters of low-cost units very close to one another, the Bomb Cannon can wipe them out with little to no problem, especially if he has support protecting him. When it comes to AoE abilities wiping out groups of enemies, few other units can do it just as effectively as the Bomb Cannon can. And it's really cool to watch those explosions in slow-mo. I enjoy it a lot. The Bomb Cannon, despite having really low health, does really high damage with a pretty moderate rate of fire, making him incredibly effective when he has, like I said, support. If you can get a knight or a king in front of there to distract enemies, the Bomb Cannon can really turn the tide of a game. Up next, coming in at number 7, is one of the strongest 1v1 units in the entire game. We're going to be taking a look at Red Lady Jade, who was added right around the same time, actually no, from the same update as the Dynasty update. She's an absolute beast, and her spinning attack can take out even some of the strongest units. She was one of the first units who could go up against the king and really hold her own in a 1v1. Red Lady Jade's charge ability, followed by her sweep, makes her incredibly effective for taking out moderate health units like the cavalry. She also herself has a very high health pool. Let's take a look at her versus 4 musketeers. She can eat 4 bullets and barely even flinch. Her sweep ability has very limited range and area of effect, making her not necessarily the best pick for taking out groups of enemies, as we're going to watch about 15 squires able to take her down. Coming in at number 6. Number 6 on our list, we're going to be taking a look at the Shogun. The Shogun shines when up against ranged units as he can deflect their arrows, but he can also hold his own against groups of enemies despite not having any AoE or ranged attacks due to his dodge ability. So when up against melee, he has a counter with a dodge, and when he's up against ranged, he can counter by deflecting arrows. This makes him a very well-rounded unit for a moderate cost. He has moderate health, very high rate of attack, good defense, and pretty moderate damage. If you're going up against a team with a lot of variety, a mix between siege units, melee units, and ranged units, the Shogun is almost always your best pick, as he doesn't cost that many points, and he can counter and have a solution to almost every single predicament he finds himself in. Whether it's going up against groups, one strong unit, ranged units, or dodging siege missiles, here he is deflecting like a dozen arrows. Incredibly effective when going up against swarms of ranged units. His charge ability then allows him to get in there and clean up with no damage taken. Coming in at number 5, we are getting to some of the strongest units in the game, starting with the Samurai Giant. Due to his Slow rate of attack, and he does much less damage than any of the other giants, but that kind of makes sense because he costs less points. Here he is going up against the tree giant with his giant stick of broccoli, and the tree giant just absolutely beats the hell out of him. He can barely stand up, he can barely hold his own, and he gets knocked out in just a couple swings of his tree. Up against the ice giant, the samurai giant is even less effective. Despite being weaker, he's only a little bit cheaper than these other units, so if you're gonna dish out the extra points to go for a giant, you might as well pick the tree giant or the ice giant, because the samurai giant just really can't hold his own, and in fact, some smaller, cheaper units can even take out the samurai giant. Number 4, up next, we are taking a look at, again, one of my other favorite units in the game, the Tree Giant. The Tree Giant has an area of effect on his swings that can take out multiple units with just one swing. Here we're going to take a look at him going up against thousands worth of score of ancient era Spartans, and he just cleans up without taking a single hit. Due to the size of his tree and the length of his character, he can hit units from pretty far away without them being able to hit him back. Here he is going up against the king. The king is, of course, cheaper than the tree giant, not by much, but he can still take him out without taking a single hit. Now, when he goes up against some of these stronger, expensive units like the knights, they can come in and get a few hits, but even then, the tree giant can still clean up due to his fast rate of attack. Number 3 on our list is not only super effective, but in my opinion, one of the coolest units in the game. We're going to be taking a look at the ancient era god, Oller, who throws axes of frost and can freeze multiple units with just one axe throw, creating almost a wall where units have trouble getting past it, and he can just barrage them. When paired with the cheerleader, he might be one of the strongest units in the game. Now, not only is he good against groups of cheap units, he's also pretty good when going up against strong units. It only takes about 2 axes for him to freeze a knight, which can eat up almost an entire enemy team, as the knights are pretty expensive. When going up against other units that are just as strong as him, like the king is a melee unit, obviously, and Oller is a ranged unit. Oller, if he has enough space, he can freeze the king before the king can even close the gap, making Oller one of the most overpowered ranged units in all of the game. And now we are down to the top 2 best secret units in all of tabs. We are taking a look at number 2, the Sensei, who has an insane rate of fire, an insane amount of health, and an insane amount of damage. He can mow down just about any foe. His attacks have a knockback effect that makes it so when he hits units as big as giants, they can't even move forward. So when the Sensei locks in on a unit, it's almost game over. Giant units like the tree giant can't even get close enough to get a single hit. Here he is going up against another one of the heaviest units in the game and mowing him down with ease. And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to take us to number 1. You might have guessed it. We are going to be taking a look at the 6,000 score Ice Giant. The Ice Giant has the highest pool of health in the entire game, one of the highest damages. He's pretty slow, and he is the most expensive unit in the game. He can go up against entire armies and wipe them out with little to no effort. Here he is going up against a couple knights and a king with a catapult as support, and they cannot take out the Ice Giant. When pairing the Ice Giant with entire factions of equal score, he hardly ever folds, and he can take out mass numbers of units without going down. Undeniably the strongest of the giants, the Ice Giant makes little work of the Tree Giant and the Samurai Giant alike, only taking 3 or 4 hits to knock them out and taking very little damage in return. The Ice Giant is absolutely one of my favorite units and completely changed the game when he was added just a couple months ago. And as always, I am your host, ZEROdeaths. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider leaving a like, comment, and subscribing. Let me know if you agree with my list and what other kinds of top 10s you guys want to see. Before we go, did you guys know that we have both a Discord channel for this YouTube channel as well as merch? If you haven't, please check it out. It helps me grow as a creator and sustains the channel. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the next one.